Hi, I'm Stacy.
And I am Mark, and this is the Gurus and Game Changers podcast.
Welcome, 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 gurus. Welcome, game changers. Mark.
Stacy.
Today I am so excited and happy to introduce to everyone Shaun Ziegler.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I've actually known Shaun for a lot of years, right?
Yes.
How many years do you think we've... So...
Like, at least 10.
10.
Yeah.
In the same class as my son,
Yep.
Zach Bonnell.
Met on the first day of high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wait, tell me that story real quick.
It was actually hilarious because we're freshman year. We don't know anybody. I didn't know anybody because I came from a smaller school, and Zach didn't know anybody because he transferred last minute.
From Malvern Prep, yeah.
From Malvern Prep. And I'm Ziegler, so I'm Z. And when you first go in freshman year, they align you in your seats based on alphabetical order. And Zach is B, Zach Bonnell. So he was B, but he was right behind me. And I was like, well, I'm supposed to be here. But Zach was there because I guess he transferred to Shanahan like the week before school. So they just threw him in behind me. And so it was just me and him in the Spanish class with like this other girl that was kind of cute. And we definitely got along right away.
Oh, yeah.
It was just funny. And he didn't know anybody. I didn't know anybody. We were both really short, had brown hair, long hair. So we just
You guys are kind of like BFFs that year.
Oh yeah, we hung out all the time. I was at the Bonnells and the Grants all the time.
I know.
So,
Those are good days.
Good days.
Yeah, when I was going to say, when I first met Shaun, he was in my basement, right? Hanging out with Zach and some of the other boys. But I think right from the beginning, I kind of knew there was something different about Shaun, right? Something different. Like you weren't exactly like all your buddies. Like you wanted to talk about different, more serious things, about work, and not always. I mean, you're still fun. I'm not saying that you were just always focused on that stuff, but for sure, I mean, you were more focused on work, right?
Yeah. And to me, it wasn't work. It's more just, I was more interested in different things. Like I was more curious about like my interests, not that it was better or worse, were just really around worldly things and worldly problems. And I don't know why that was, but like ever since I was in second grade, like that was how I thought. So I observed the world and would just ask, why are these things happening? And then it would always get me down these rabbit holes of curiosity, where at a certain point, the things I enjoyed talking about, which maybe are some of the observed things that you saw, were so outlandish to people because I was so far in the rabbit hole.
I wouldn't say it's outlandish. I was
not
impressed.
In a bad way.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way.
Yeah, in a good way. Yeah.
To outlandish to like maybe freshman, sophomore year.
That level of
so
thinking.
now like my high school friends, to me, I'm the same person, just evolved more and even deeper in the rabbit hole. But I've really they see me out in the world doing my thing. And they're like a little surprised in a way because I blended in with them, as friends because they were my friends too. I just enjoyed that. But it's always been like this. I've always just been deeply curious and deeply interested in worldly things, which can be classified as work. But to me, it's just passion and interest.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's good. So like, what was the first kind of company you created? Because it couldn't have just been Ziggs Landscaping. I think there had to be stuff earlier than that.
Well, if you wanted to go back into like grade school, it wasn't really like a company.
Grade school entrepreneur.
I'm serious. Like this,
It wasn't necessarily like a full company, but there were definitely some little grade school things that I'd be doing. So like the earliest one was probably in kindergarten. We would go to Our Deli, which is this breakfast spot.
Kindergarten, like 5 or 6.
Yeah, however old that is. We would go to this breakfast spot with my dad, a couple times a week before school, and they gave free lollipops. So I would go and get a bunch of free lollipops, and then I would go into the scarce lunchroom where there was no lollipops and to sell them for like $5-10 a pop.
What?
And they would
Lollipops for $5 in kindergarten?
Sometimes
You were price gouging just a bit.
There was no lollipops. I was the only person who had lollipops.
Scarcity value,
Yes.
right?
Scarcity value. So that was probably my earliest taste. My mom would make me give back a lot of the money. But that was one of the earliest things.
It's a good ethical lesson there as well. Yeah.
Stephanie's awesome. Your mom's awesome.
Yeah, she is a legend. But so that was one of the earliest things. But Ziggs actually started in 8th grade. So it was relatively early too. but it evolved throughout high school and into
Yeah,
college.
I mean, some kids start like landscaping business. Like you'll find like a flyer in your mailbox, or they'll call you and say, "I can walk your dog." Shaun, I am not kidding, because I was one of his clients, had a full-on business starting in 8th grade.
8th grade.
Like full-on. You had the spreadsheets.
Wow.
You would hire now. Tell me if I'm wrong. You would hire people, friends you knew that you could rely on. Zach did a couple days, I think.
Yeah, Zach did a couple days. Yeah, so it started with me and my neighbors in the neighborhood. Like a summer job in 8th grade, handing out flyers like it usually starts. And it was great. You know, wasn't much of a business. It was more like, hey, we'll charge $12 an hour and you pay us directly, but we do the work. The next year, my neighbors left and were like, we're going to work at an ice cream shop, right? So they let it drive. I'm like, this is pretty good. Like I can just start, hiring my friends or, hiring other people to do this work, and I charge a premium, and I don't have to do the work necessarily. I will too to make more, but then I make more. So I started hiring all my friends in high school originally, and all my older brother's friends, which was a weird dynamic because I was younger than them, like freshman year of high school, and they were sophomores or juniors in high school, and I'm like telling them what to do, which was definitely a weird dynamic, but very healthy for me in my evolution of like managing people. So they kind of just continue to evolve. I would be at baseball practice, and then I would have, 4 or 8 people of my high school friends out who didn't have a sport in the season doing the landscaping. A lot of them will probably tell you some funny stories because I think they built some good memories together. But I think every single one of my friends, like 25, 30 plus people, cycled through that business. I was the supplier, the employer of Shithead High School.
But you were working spreadsheets. Like you were like, this was, how old were you?
Yeah, 8th grade to, freshman, sophomore year.
So it's like
and
13,
yeah, I guess 13, 14. But I got very good because I'm more of a mathematical mind.
Right.
And I'm more a blend between math and I guess like a little charisma and salesmanship or vision. So the operations of the business, like how to do the landscaping and all that stuff, wasn't what I really enjoyed by any means. But I love the behind the scenes stuff of getting the clients, running the numbers and doing all those things. And I was really good at that. So there was many seasons where we had way too much work. And I'm like, how do I do this operationally? And then we had to scale back a little bit, slow down because we didn't have the capital to get the equipment. And I would literally just take it as practice. To me, that was my practice reps. It wasn't about the money. It was very profitable, but there were many times where people owe me money and I was like, all right, whatever. I'm not doing this necessarily for the money. I'm doing this for training for myself. So that wasn't priority number one, which tends to be, oh, you got to get the money. It would be for any other business that's growing. You got to get the money in the door. It was more, how will we track the money? We understand how much money, what is our margin here?
Where's it coming
from? How do we maximize? How do we make more money, more revenue? And how do we maximize the efficiency? So we would have systems down to get, turn the mulching from 3 hours to 1.5 hours. And that basically cut half the cost because we're charging a flat fee on the expense. So stuff like that. It wasn't just about the landscaping work itself, which was, I found an enjoyment to it, but that was my passion. It was really deeply the fact that I could rally all these troops, come up with a creative solution to work on this property, get that homeowner to trust me that we could execute on the solution, and then get the troops to do it.
But how did you know how to do that? Like, did you have a guru? Did you have someone who modeled how to build a business for you? Or did you just kind of inertly know how to do that? Like innately, I guess I should say.
There's a lot of entrepreneurs, I guess you call it. I don't love that word, but entrepreneurs in my family. And as I mentioned, like in 2nd grade, I dressed up as Benjamin Franklin, who you could say is like the OG entrepreneur, discovered electricity with the lightning rod. And so that was my programming. They say from 1 to 7, every information comes in your head and you'll absorb it all, whether it's true or not. From 7 to 13, information comes in your head and you can kind of start to pick and choose, like that's true, that's not, that's true, that's not. And then 13 on, you can block things from coming in your head. So from 1 to even, this was 2nd grade, so it was around 7 to 13, my programming was all based on that. Like the fact that you could discover lightning and invent something new.
Wow.
So that was my programming. Most children's programming is the normal stuff, like toys, maybe sports or whatever it might be. But truthfully, like that was my programming. So from that, I think I just became a sponge of information and just like observed. So observed even being at restaurants, at whatever business was going on, or, you know, fortunately my godfather was an entrepreneur himself. I didn't see him much because he was in Miami, but whenever he was in town, I would just be watching and like learning, not even asking much questions, but we'd be going around town and he's this very charismatic guy. And he'd be in like the Costco for like, we would go Christmas shopping or whatever. We would never end up getting presents. We would just end up getting food, but we would go to like the Costco and we're like, why are we going to Costco for presents? Like there's a mall right down the street.
It's kind of bulk shopping too.
Bulk shopping for like, we're like, okay, Uncle Shaun, like we'll go to this Costco. And right when you walk in the Costco, there's all these signs for like these cars, because they had this car buying program at Costco. And he's taking all these pictures of all these signs. He's asking people like, hey, what do you think about this? Just in the store. And, you know, I'm probably in
He's doing his own market research.
Fourth. Exactly.
Wow.
But I didn't fully realize that. I'm more just like, why is he doing this? Like as a third grader, fourth grader. And then a few years later, maybe like 4 or 5 years later, he launches the Walmart of all auto buying. So he launches the same Costco program, but for Walmart, which is a way bigger store.
Wow.
And it's a company called Car Saver. So now they power all of Walmart's car buying online, and other companies like Nissan and some others. And that was from his market research that he was doing when I was in third grade, fourth grade. And I just kind of connected those dots. So being the fact that I had this programming of you can invent things, you can build things, you can do things.
Right.
And then I had that opportunity to absorb that as just sponge, you know, just literally going out at a Costco and learning. It was like, whoa.
Wow.
And that kind of became my programming.
You definitely are thinking at a different level than eighth graders, typical eighth graders, or a typical second grader. I mean, you're looking at possibilities. You're being steeped in it from such an early age, so that you know there's something other than video games, TV,
sports,
books,
sports.
Yeah.
So you definitely had a different upbringing.
What?
Exactly.
So when you were like that, did you know, like, did people treat you differently? Did you feel different? Like, I know you said something about how your high school teachers kind of loved you, but also hated you at the same time, like for whatever reason. Like, what is that? What did you mean by that?
Yeah. So back to the thinking different or feeling different, I would say it started in grade school. I definitely felt a little different, and that I would fit in. I was good at fitting in.
You were awesome.
But yeah,
fun
I guess
to hang out with.
To me, like I felt different, but like other people seemed like I tend to fit in. But I felt like I was like, do other people just like think about everything? Like there was a point of a time in my life in like 4th or 5th grade where I would probably be like, can you please just shut my brain up? Like let me just like be a kid. And because I just thought I was thinking about everything, like having conversations in my head before I have them, or thinking about just X, Y, and Z, like the secondary, thirdary, fourthary effects of all these different situations. And, you know, while kids are like laughing about some stupid joke that I just didn't think that was that funny, it didn't make sense to me. I was like, why can't I just be like that? But I actually love that about me now. Then there was a small period of time where I was like, can you shut this up? But in high school, I'm somebody who I respect people. Like I do respect people with great respect, and I treat people kindly, but I don't just follow things just because I'm told to follow things. And if I'm disrespected, like you can't expect me to respect you back. So at Shanahan, there's a lot of rules for no reasons.
It was a Catholic school, right?
It was a Catholic school and particularly really strict. So it's not all Catholic schools are like that, but this one definitely was. And so I, you know, given that nature, like I wasn't disrespecting people. I wasn't like treating people poorly. I wasn't getting in fights or smoking weed or doing all these bad things. Yet at certain points, I probably led the school in demerits. Because
you and Zach both, I think.
Zach was probably up there too. It all started that first day, freshman year. We were together, you know. But so I would, you know, just not wear the shoes or have my phone in my pocket or show up really late to school or, you know, stop by the lunchroom to say what's up to my friends.
Sell lollipops.
In class. Yeah, whatever it might be. And they would just bust on me and try to like, for what the dynamic there, since you're in this box, a lot of these teachers get this like power hunger. And then the second there was like a rebel, their power hunger gets like,
right. I got to shut this person down.
Yeah. It's like they get threatened by this power hunger. Cause I would explain things with logic and whatnot. And what probably pissed them off the most is, I wouldn't do all the BS assignments or anything like that. And then I would get hundreds on the tests. And I would get all A's.
Right.
So they're like, well, what do we got on this kid?
He didn't fit the mold.
Yeah, I didn't fit the mold of like the rebellious kid, yet I was a rebellious kid.
Right.
But what are you going to say? Like, I'm a like screw up. What they generally say, you're a reject, you're going to fail in college, you're going to do all those things. Well, guess what? I'm employing half your school in my business. and I'm getting straight A's. And I'm in AP Physics and AP Calc and in all these higher classes. So that's where like the part what I mentioned, I think they had a respect. I recognized that at the last day of school, graduation, they try to not give you my diploma because 2 days prior, there was graduation practice and they had 2. And I'm Z. So graduation practice, all you do is like, they call your name and you stand up and you go. But by the time Z comes, there's 250 reps of students that go. I'm like, this is pretty simple. I think I got this. And they had a second practice the next day for some reason. And I had work. Like we had a client's job that needed to get done. And like, to be honest, we were going on senior week the next week. So I had none of my workforce because my workforce was my high school buddies and I wasn't going to be there. So we had to get this job done. And the rest of my crew, or most of them at least, were at the graduation practice because they're my buddies. So like, all right, well, I'm going to get this job done. I'm not going to graduation practice. This is priority, obviously. And they took that as an insult or as disrespect for some reason. And they tried to not give me my diploma when I was graduating high school. So like everybody gets their diploma, you go back to your classroom, they hand it to everybody and they just didn't, hand it to me. I'm like, where the heck is my diploma? And I was somebody who really wanted to get the frick out of high school. So I'm like, come on, give me my diploma. I want to be done with this. But that's where I saw some other teachers. I could tell they respected me because I was asking them. And they're like, look, like they like had my back. They supported me.
That's great.
Most of the teachers who gave me shit all throughout high school were then like supporting me. So we ended up fighting and got my diploma. But
get this kid out of here. No.
Yeah, I was like, you really want to hold me in? Like, you want to keep me here? I thought you want me out.
Yeah, right.
So just I'm curious, and then I'm going to let you ask a question, Mark. But so like when you started this company and when you were like employing all the high school kids, and we're going to get to the fact that you actually sold this company, which is fantastic. But when you were doing that, what did your family think? Were they like, oh, that's just Shaun, or or is this like something where they're like, wow, this is incredible? Or were they just like, this is pretty much what he does? Like,
I think it was a blend. I think they were like, this is awesome that you're doing that. Like my dad would always say stuff like that. This is really good. You're doing stuff like this, like, or whatever. But I think at the same time because I was also, freshman, sophomore year, I couldn't trade the stocks because I wasn't 18, but I was also like in the financial markets. And I was also.
You were trading stocks at 18?
Oh yeah. I mean, definitely
not you personally,
18.
But.
Once I turned 18, I was, because I could, but before that I couldn't. But I was studying them like religiously. So I was telling all my picks, I'm like, Dad, if you listen to me, you would be so freaking rich right now. But he didn't. But like I was telling before the Model S of Tesla, even before the Model S, I was following Tesla. And I was like, Zach would make fun of me all the time. Elon Musk make fun of me because of that. And now I would always say Tesla's going to be one of the biggest companies in the world. And Elon Musk is going to be the richest man in the world. This was back when Elon was worth maybe $10 billion, maybe probably less. But I was really interested in those sort of technologies, and then the ones that followed suit with them. So all the wearable tech, which wasn't popular then. There was no Apple Watch, but I thought the wearable tech was going to be big then. A lot of the chip companies, so like NVIDIA, which is blowing up now. These were companies that I was kind of picking at in high school or telling my dad to get. So I was also in that. So to answer your question, it was like, yeah, well, this is great. I respect it. But at the same time, like, oh, that's just Shaun. He's just like into all these different ways to make money, I guess. He's always trying to find ways to make money.
That is awesome.
But,
so have you ever worked for anyone, or is it just entrepreneur, company after company after company?
Company after company after company, except one period of time where I think it was like sophomore year of high school. I had my landscaping company, but I was also interning at my uncle and my dad's company, FinPay, because they needed help. There was like 5 of us or 6 of us there, to just get like some startup experience from like a tech startup. So I was like selling, it was a company that sells to provide behavioral healthcare providers, transparent payment systems to collect money from patients prior to care rather than waiting traditionally like 90 days after.
That's cool.
Really cool company. And it's gone from those 5-6 people to now they have like 80 people.
Oh my God.
So
that's
it was
fantastic.
a great experience, but that's the only time where I technically worked for somebody else. And it was like 2 months, maybe.
So from high school, you finally got your diploma, and then you went to Penn State, right?
Penn State. Yep.
So tell me about like that decision, because you probably were like, do I really want to go to college? Or, what did you feel pressured to go? Were you glad that you went, at least for the time you went? Like what happened? What went through your head?
So I did not want to go at all.
Right.
And my parents just really, really pushed me to go, and everybody's going. So also like just culture as general pushed me to go. And for whatever reason, I was weak to not just like fight it then.
You're 18.
Yeah, but I knew in my gut, I was like,
Yeah.
I shouldn't go, even to the point where, and Penn State's the only school I applied to, because I was like, screw this application process, didn't do any of the SAT prep or anything like that. And I got into Penn State like really early for some reason.
Great school.
Yeah, main campus. And before everybody else who applied, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just go here. And one of my best friends, Jack, was going there too. But the week of initiation, I told Jack that, like, he was all excited, what are we going to do? What are these fraternities we're going to join and all these things? And I'm like, yeah, this all sounds fun. But Jack, I'm be honest with you. I'm not making it past junior year. I will not be here past junior year. And I bet he still remember me telling him that, but I remember it vividly. And that's what happened.
Well, but so why even stay that long?
Yeah, I got caught in it. I got caught in the scenes. I mean, you go to college and it's this like fantasy land, this bubble that surrounds you, and it's bubbles filled with candy and fun, but the candy's more like booze and whatever you want. Mm-hmm. So I definitely got caught in the bubble. And then going into my junior year, so summer going into my junior year, I was on a skateboard on my way to your house.
Yeah.
I wasn't on your way to your house.
You were leaving our house.
I left your house, and I was on my way to Mass.
This was awful, Shaun.
But so I was left your house, then got back home, shower, was on my way to Mass, was on this electric skateboard, really cool board. And I was, it was a one-way street. Everybody else had stop signs. And this lady must just not saw me and was going across the street and just, boom, hit me and like ran over my leg and everything, and ended up, first thing lying on the ground there, wiggle my toes. I'm like, okay, I'm not paralyzed. I feel my head in a way, like I'm like, okay, my head doesn't hurt, so I'm good. Like my head, and I can move my toes. I'm not paralyzed.
Did you remember the impact of it? Like, do you remember anything, or were you did you black out? Like,
it's a really weird feeling. It was like it's a bizarre feeling, because you're going, and then all of a sudden there's a moment of time where you're like, I have zero control what happens next.
Oh my God.
Where you're used to having control in all actions. So I have zero control what happens next. And the outcome of that zero control is like life or death.
Oh my God.
Because I could have easily just been pancaked. And then it was just a feeling of, like, it was more of a feeling than it was a sight or memory, like a sight memory of just like being trapped. Like I'm like stuck in this thing. And then, I open my eyes and I'm on the ground, and that's when I wiggle my toes. Oh, so it's more of a feeling, like I'll never forget the feeling, but it was probably like it woke me the frick up.
Wow.
Because I was like, life can end like this.
Yeah.
It's short. And I had all these dreams, not just dreams, but all these desires. Like the world wasn't the way I wanted it to be, or I thought the world could be better. And I'm not waiting any longer. It's time. Like I'm going. It is time to start building, to start making change. So I dropped out right there.
Really?
Yeah.
So that was right after you recovered, because I know you were out of commish for a minute. I remember when we got the call, and we were in our house, and you felt like you had just left, but the boys were crying. That they were so upset. It was Zach and Hirschman, Luke Hirschman.
And Theo.
And Theo.
Yep.
And they were so shaken, and we were all so shaken. And I guess you called Hirschman to let him know you were alive, or someone called him.
I think the one of the bystanders called Hirsch because my parents were in Mass, so they didn't answer. And I was lying there, and they wouldn't let me move because they thought I broke my neck. So if I moved, like, it could get worse, which was so annoying because the pavement was burning hot and my back was completely ripped open. So I was sitting there in the pavement, but they wouldn't let me move. So they called, I was like, call Hirsch because he's very reliable.
Yeah, he's very responsible.
So they talked to him.
Yeah. Let me live.
Always one.
Yeah. But,
so then when did you make that decision? Like, did you go home, or was it like right there?
I went back to school for that semester because this was like the week before school started. So I went back to school for that semester, and right away I was like, I'm not finishing. I'm going to finish this semester and then I'm out. So, and I'll never forget the day where I told walk into whatever department and I'm like, I'm out. And they're like, are you sure you don't want like a leave of absence, take a little 6-month break? And I'm like, no, I'm out. Like, write me off. I'm out. And it was a beautiful sunny day. I walk out of that building and I'm free. Like, it's the rest of my life now. Like, it's time. Like, no more of here's what you got to do. It's the rest of my life. It's on me to make it happen.
So you said something pretty heady, I guess, or heavy is probably a better way to put it. Something about you made the decision because there were changes you need to make in the world. Explain that.
Yeah. So a lot of different changes in the world. You could see around this time and still now, culture just seems to be going in the wrong direction, where everything is about materials, this, that, these all things. And everything's about building like our own synthetic versions. And we call that innovation. But if you look out into the world today versus 500 years ago, it was a much more beautiful world. Mm-hmm. There wasn't all this obstacles and pollution and negative things. So I think we've gone down this route of innovation that has also actually had a negative effect in many aspects. So and part of that is like changing culture. Mm-hmm. But we saw those material things. Like, if you're a philosopher in the 1900s or 1800s, you probably could predict that. If everything's built upon materials and fake shit, all of a sudden, like, the human experience is going to become more artificial. Relationships are going to become more artificial, and things that are once precious are going to become more artificial, and it's going to decay humanity. So it's led to this cultural decay, in my opinion, as well, where it's filled with, just we're angry at each other. We're separate. We're even in the Zoom era, it's harder to even go in person, like all these things. So those are some of the things I want to change. Then beyond that, I was very passionate about autonomous vehicles because I got hit by a car, was also in another car accident in high school, and my grandfather died in a car accident. So I was a fan of Tesla, so very into autonomous vehicles because I thought I could save a lot of lives. So it's this weird blend of like, I'm obsessed with technology and innovation, but at the same time, not all innovation is good innovation. So I just wanted to be able to make a change and make a difference, both from a cultural level and an innovating level.
So what does that look like, though, from a cultural level? What can you, what can I, what can Stacy do to have that impact that you're talking about?
So at an individual level, there's the micro and the macro. At the micro level, it's the family values. Mm-hmm. So creating your own family, your own tribe, and making that tribe sustainable, supporting each other unconditionally, not with transaction. Hey, you do this, I give you dollars, you give me that type thing. But the tribe just supports each other in that family values. Love your neighbor as thyself, and just spread love at the micro level. At the macro level, it's a different picture because we're fighting a different war. And it's more about getting all these micros to live those family values. So for us, and this is part of what I'm doing at Upspace, we are, there's a lot of incredible people out there in the world. There's thousands amongst thousands, great people who are all making those inspiring changes at the micro and mini macro levels, meaning like people that have followings online who are sharing great messages, etc. But they're all separated. You know, they're all kind of doing their own thing, and some have batches together. So what we're trying to do at Upspace is build the army, because alone you can do a little, but together you can do a lot. And culture follows the waves of people. They will, you know, if 10 people go that way, I might go this way, but most people are going to follow the 10 people.
You're going to go the other way.
Right? I might be the black sheep, but most people follow most people. So we're building an army that can deploy their messaging, who have this massive audience, bringing all these great people together into that army, and then going and attacking it together to spread these good messages. Because I do believe at the individual level, at our core, right, we fight over all these differences in opinions. We fight over all these, you know, and we bring into, you know, race, gender, abortion, whatever, all these little things. But deep down, we're so similar, and we all want love, and we all want to care for each other. So by spreading that message and getting people to follow people, I think there's way more people that want that than not. It's just that, you know, in part, some of the innovation, like in media and in politics, the way to control is through fear. So they spread all this fear out into the world, and they've developed this mass ecosystem on the mainstream media that all share the same message about fear. And you're gonna die if you don't do this, and all this. Like, you watch the news for an hour, there's not one positive thing that they share. So we're trying to be the counter of that, where we bring this army together to spread hope, to spread love, and we think we can change things.
It's funny because I feel like we're on a parallel path. I was thinking about this on the way
You
here.
and Shaun?
No, Gurus and Game Changers.
Oh, yeah.
And Upspace.
Okay.
Because it's the same concept.
Yeah,
We know that there's this positive in every person, right? This guru, this game changer, based on their experiences, based on their expertise, based on whatever, but they have no platform. Many people have no platform. So
Right.
we try to be the platform to pull these individual people together to benefit the people who are watching and listening to us. And it's the same concept.
That's cool.
You're trying to take these creators, right, and pull them together so you can create a force for good.
Exactly.
So we're sort of in a parallel multiverse here.
Absolutely. So you're platforming, giving the individual the platform, and then we're taking those individuals and bringing them together.
Yeah.
Because, as I said,
Into a
most
community.
people follow most people, and if they have together, it's very hard to fight these massive institutions, these massive, you know, the evil. But if you bring this army together, that's the biggest threat to evil and biggest threat to corruption is community.
Wow.
The biggest threat.
Cool. I love that. And I think too, like Upspace, so just to reel it back a little bit. So you had Ziggs, you sold Ziggs in 2021. And then how did Upspace happen? Because I think there was another company name before that one.
Yeah, it was originally called Upswing Fitness. But Same company.
Okay.
Yeah, so how that happened, it's a interesting story, because like there was this like parallel
Right.
things going on
Yeah.
that then came together, and then Upspace
Cool.
was born. So very kind of cool. It feels almost like everything, like I didn't know if I believe in destiny or not, but this story with Upspace that's evolving as we speak feels like destiny, like things are just aligning, which gives us so much confidence in this, because all these weird things happen. So it started though, really when COVID hit. When COVID hit, and you know, I was already dropped out of school, so my life personally didn't change that much. And I was outdoors doing my company, the landscape at the time, but I saw everything else change for everybody else. And all of a sudden, health and wellness became really political. And also all these other issues started to rise up, right? And the people speaking out against it, even doctors, scientists, whoever it might be, speaking up against it, was being canceled on social media. I knew doctors personally that wouldn't even text me their advice because they're like, I fear losing my license, or all this sort of stuff. It was like cancel culture was crazy. So I started to create this company called TOS, which stands for TOS, The Other Side.
Wow.
And The Other Side was originally a media. So it was a podcast where I was going to bring two people who had two different sides to a story and have a conversation. Like, for example, the vaccine. You think we should get the vaccine.
That's cool.
You don't. What's the intention? The intention is we want to keep people happy and healthy. How do we solve this problem?
How do we work together?
How do we work together? And then beyond that, it was to build a platform, so a tech platform that empowered the writers and journalists to be able to share their message online without censorship and make money doing it. So simultaneously, about the parallel path, my now partner and co-founder, Chris, when COVID hit, he was a personal trainer. He was type 1 diabetic, got really into health, then got his personal training certificate. Ironically, I was one of his first clients like 10 years back. He told me everything I knew. He was a little older than me. And then when COVID hit, a lot of his clients, they all had to go home, and they all wanted, to stay in community and also find ways to stay healthy. So he put together this program on using Google Sheets, Slack for messaging, Venmo for payments, all these different tools. Obviously very tedious for him. So he started looking just for other ways to do it, other softwares that maybe put it together. And there was nothing. Nothing brought community together around health and wellness. There were platforms that brought coach to consumer one-on-one and tracked it, but nothing was community to health and wellness. So Chris started looking into building this. He reached out to me because in college I had a custom t-shirt business, and he was like, hey,
I forgot about the custom t-shirt. I ordered a bunch of those too.
Fresh press. So he reached out to me because he was like, hey, can you make some t-shirts for me? I'm like, Chris, I'm out of school. That was for the fraternities and like just to make money because I was bored up at school. But tell me about this business. And he started telling me about this business, and immediately hit for me because I'm trying to give a platform for people who are being canceled. He's giving a platform, people sharing great messages around health and wellness and trying to help people. And the thing that was being canceled at this time because of COVID was a lot of health and wellness stuff. So it was just a beautiful blend.
Wow.
And immediately it clicked. We started getting together and we're like, let's freaking build this thing. And then we just went all in.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing.
I want to change gears.
Yeah, go for it.
I can't get the words out. The way you think, right? Certainly at a young age, and it has stayed true, right? You think at a different level. That's the vibe I'm getting. You've always thought at a different level, in a different plane than your peers. Okay, even how old are you now?
24.
So even for a 24-year-old, right? Not only is it a function of your experience, having done everything you've done, but even if you didn't have that experience, you'd still be thinking up here, broader, right? More macro. How can you get, what advice would you give to others your age or the 8th grader to get them to think bigger and broader?
The number one thing I would say is don't be open-minded. Don't be closed-minded. Be ridiculously curious. So always ask why. Ask why about your own opinions. Ask why about everybody else's opinions. Ask why do we use these cameras instead of an iPhone? Ask why do we use that light? And you'll start to find these answers.
Yeah.
Ask why about everything. Not for the intention of trying to prove people wrong and prove yourself right, but for the intention of finding the truth. And that's what I would say, because when you have that relentless curiosity, the opportunities become limitless and you start to learn at a rate beyond anybody. Not because you're smarter. I don't see myself as smarter than anybody. I'm just relentlessly curious. And the more rabbit holes of curiosity that I go down, it separates me beyond, because most people get caught right here.
Yeah.
So that would be the advice. Just ask why. Be relentlessly curious.
But how do you stop that process, right? You know, I relate to you when you say I want my brain to just stop, because my brain goes and goes and goes and goes, and I'm like, I just want some peace. I just want to like chill and not think about the lights, not think about the camera, not think about, you know what I mean? I think it's important to do that, but then how do you ever relax? Like, because I personally have a lot of trouble with that. And I know people kind of like us, and you're probably the same way, Mark, just like we're always kind of trying to think, what's the next thing? What am I going to do now? How's this going to work? Or, you know, where does it stop?
Yeah. So a few things on that.
Okay.
So one, don't feel like you need to stop that just because the world says you have to stop that. You know, the world says you can't do this, you can't do that, or you have to be this way or that way. You need a break and you need balance, you need that. But the reason we get in those rabbit holes of asking why, or, you know, why does the camera do this? Why does that do that? Why does this do that? Is usually because that's what energizes us.
Right.
So the irony is, by stopping that, you're actually crushing your energy. And everything's energy.
Okay.
It's an energy exchange. So I would lean in and lean on the things that give you energy. Now, to your point, like there might be periods of time you're trying to sleep. Or
right. That's the thing. I don't really sleep. I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like worrying about this, fixing that, doing that. Yeah. Keep going. Sorry.
So with those things, I think it's really important. There's two things with that. One, understand what is your why, and deep down, am I doing this for the money? Am I doing this because I love it? Am I doing this because I'm trying to make change? And what is your why? And just trust and give hope to that why. Because if you trust yourself and trust your why and trust the actions that you're doing, you don't need to fear or be in anxiety about these things because you have absolute trust. So when you're trying to sleep, you don't have this anxiousness or this fear of like, oh my God, what about, overthinking things in the sense that if you don't think about it, it's not going to happen or something. Because the truth is, you think about it, it's not going to make any change, but you getting sleep will make change the next day.
Right.
So just trusting yourself, your abilities, and your why, like why you're doing that is very important. Now, a little tool to get better at that and to get a little bit more introspective are things that I do, at least, that I think society and humanity has lost touch on, is silence and meditation and self-reflection. Back in the day, happens all the time. You're out in the wilderness, you're hunting, and you're waiting there for hours, or you're in the garden and you're doing agriculture. It's just you in the garden, and you can be very introspective. Now we live in an age where we're in constant stimulus with not just our phones, but also just lights. Lights are everywhere. Noises, cars, trains, airplanes, music. I love music, and music can be used as a tool too. But there's just a lot of stimulus. TV, so you have to Netflix, distractions, whatever it might be. So you have to really just take yourself back intentionally, because it doesn't happen as natural in the natural environment where it used to, and meditate. And I do a lot of breath work. So guided meditations with breath work. It's called theta breath work. It's one of my favorite things in the world. But really forcing yourself to do that, because then you can get in touch with yourself, in touch with your gut. And when you can do that, you can trust yourself and you have hope in the future. And then you don't live in the state of fear as much.
Wow.
So
that's good stuff.
What kind of conversations do you have with yourself every day so you can win that day?
I don't really think about things from winning a day to day. I more think of, am I being my best self, and am I working towards this vision? So I try to zoom out a lot. So in the conversations that I have with myself, I would say two things. In the micro, in the day, it's a lot of conversations of maybe me talking on this podcast before I talk on this podcast, right? Not necessarily writing down on the computer, but having these conversations in my brain.
Right.
What is going to happen, or if I have a big pitch to investors, I'm having that conversation before I have the pitch, or even like little things. If I'm talking to a stranger in the coffee shop, like I'm having a conversation in my brain around that. So I'm just talking to myself. But beyond that, where I really live in my flow state, I try to live in the unknown. So, which it tends to be very scary for a lot of people, but you kind of have two realms. You have the known and the unknown realm. I'll use airplanes, for example, or flying, for example, right? So back before we invented flight, there was just this realm of unknown. How can we fly? Can we fly even? I mean, birds can, we know that, but can we fly? And so most of it was the unknown. And the best innovation comes from the unknown, when you just have to discover how to do it. So we ended up discovering airplanes. And then that became the known thing. And when that becomes the known thing, most people have comfort in the known. So you're like, okay, we know airplanes can fly. How do we optimize the airplane? Make it faster, make it more safe, make it bigger so it can hold more things. And these are all just known, and you're optimizing the known. To challenge myself, and where I really get in flow, is I like to live in the unknown, where it's like, well, what if we go back to the unknown when we didn't know how to fly? What if there's hypothetically 10 other ways to fly that we just haven't discovered, that are unknown? What are those ways? Where do we see it in the universe? How could it be better? How does it make sense? What is the logic behind it? And then you can find the science and data behind it. So I try to live in the unknown. Cool. One, just because it energizes me a lot.
I can tell. Yeah.
So it's like a fun exercise. But those are a lot of the conversations that I have with myself. With Upspace, it's more around culture. Like, why do we live in this cultural state? So it doesn't always have to be a physical innovation. Like, it could be cultural innovation. It could be religious innovation. It could be bodily innovation. There's so many different forms,
right.
And so many forms of unknown. So like, what if there's our brains? What if we could communicate
telepathically,
just by, why do we have eyes? What if there's some method of communication? Touch, sound, the frequencies. Like, these are unknowns that maybe was known before in history and we've lost touch on it because it's very easy to do that. But what if there is something beyond that? Cool. What if there is a connection between conscious and subconscious that we've lost touch on? And because we've lost touch on it, we're just building all these artificial things to solve the subconscious problems, right? Heal the mental illnesses, the physical illnesses as well. We're having all these synthetic things because we've lost touch of conscious and subconscious. But what if there is still ability to do that?
Damn, that's cool.
Stuff like that. So I really like to live in the unknown.
How much of that, how much of nutrition and fitness and lifestyle impacts any of that? Because I think it's really important. I know you guys do too.
So what I'll say about fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, and impacting that is it just makes it easier to get to those states, in my opinion. Because otherwise you have a lot of distraction. Like, you have bodily distraction and mental distraction and fatigue. So like, when you eat poor, you might not recognize it, but you're going to have a glucose spike, right? Say you eat a bunch of sugar, like fake sugar, you'll have a glucose spike and then a glucose crash and then a craving. That's just distraction. So it's harder to get into these flow states where you can really tap in. And then likewise, like, if you think of our bodies, we're literally 70% made of water and require a ridiculous amount of oxygen, right? Every process in the body requires oxygen. If you suppress us from oxygen, we die. It's like the one thing. If you suppress us from the oxygen, we die. Oxygen and water, which water has oxygen as well. So all those different things, it's really about getting more of that and more circulation of that so you can get more in touch. So for example, exercise. You might train for something and you got to like work out this way or that way to train for that particular thing. But if you're just trying to be healthy, it's more about getting water in. Mm-hmm. So you have water, which 70% of your body, and oxygen in because you got to breathe heavier. And then your heart pumps it in the blood around the body so that the rest of your body and your brain gets the oxygen and water that it needs. So it's really as simple as that. And then not putting synthetic things in your body so that you don't get blocked by the fake world because we're trying to go subconscious.
Okay.
So we want nature. So that's how I look at it. Like those, you can just block yourself.
So it's not to like lose weight or to like beef up or to like not have a thigh gap. Like,
not me, yeah.
Which, I think about, it's about really just being your best sort of self, like in every way. And that includes
unlock human powers,
being healthy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Well, it's more about, I think we're natural beings and these things are just making my life worse in every aspect because I can connect those dots. A lot of people just don't connect them. And it's hard because society doesn't connect them as a whole. So you have to do it individually. And then I truly want to just unlock some sort of human abilities with my brain and tap into my subconscious because I think that will really unlock a lot for me in the world. So that's kind of how I see it, why it's not about.
Is it possible to be successful and not physically fit? Like to be like a cocaine addict or alcoholic or, have like really things that are going on in your body that aren't healthy?
Define success.
Well, you tell me.
So if it's material success, like if the success is make a lot of money, of course. We see celebrities, we see some CEOs do it. Some people are fat as could be, do it. And they're making a lot of money. But I don't define success by money. I think I'm going to make a shit ton just by what I do, but I don't even care. Success to me is just life itself and recognizing this appreciation for that life. And if you are at that state, you would treat that life very well. So by taking drugs and alcohol and food or whatever, you're clearly running from something or trying to get that easy dopamine or trying to do these things because you're not successful in the state that you're in. Because otherwise you just want to do those things. So it's not a matter of like, you have to do these things to be successful. It's more like if you're not doing these things, that tends to be a sign that's a part of your life that isn't successful, that's hurting. Because otherwise you wouldn't destroy the most precious thing, which is life.
Interesting. Just reeling it back, and I don't know if you have more stuff, but Upspace. Let's get back to Upspace, because I know you want to get it out in the world, and we want to help you. That's something that we really feel passionate about here. So you're calling it the Spotify for health and wellness. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that?
So I'll put it this way. When you think of music, what platform do you think of?
Spotify.
When you think of movies, what platform do you think of?
Netflix. Probably.
Netflix.
Or, yeah.
When you think of online shopping, what platform do you think of?
Amazon.
Amazon. When you think of health and wellness, what platform do you think of?
It's just open space for someone to claim.
There you go.
So whenever I ask that question, most people freeze. They have no answer. They'll say a different thing. Everyone says a different thing. Some people even be like Pfizer. You know, it's like this weird
pharmaceutical companies,
right? Yeah, because it's health.
Yeah.
Or I think it's fake health, but it can be considered health. So when you think of health and wellness, you think of Upspace and how it relates to Spotify. When you look at Spotify, Netflix, and Amazon, they didn't. For example, Spotify didn't create the music themselves. They gave the platform for the artists and musicians
they created
to
a community.
create it and then make it so easy to get it to their people to listen. Netflix didn't create the movies themselves originally. Mm-hmm. They gave a platform for the producers to put their movies, and they made it really easy for the people to watch the movies. Similarly, Upspace, we're not creating the solutions or the workouts, meditations, recipes, guides, whatever it might be. We're giving a platform for the health and wellness leaders, whether it's a trainer, nutritionist, doctor, whoever it might be, to give those resources to the people, and then the people can easily find and discover and follow along very easily.
So it's an app that you can download. Mm-hmm. Talk about how does it work?
So how it works is, and there's different phases of how it will work, but right now how it works is a creator, health and wellness creator, can go on there and create their own Upspace. And what an Upspace is, we looked at all the use cases of all these different types of creators, trainers, nutritionists, et cetera. You look at their websites, all they have is, about page, what are they? Offerings page, so like products, programs, whatever it might be. Community page, so whether that leads to like a Facebook group or some other community or whatever that community might be. And then an events page, oftentimes, events here. So when you have an Upspace, you click a button, creates your Upspace, gives you about, it gives you community, group chat, feed right there. It gives you programs, the ability to create programs in your products and your offerings, an events page, so you can list events. So that's what Upspace is for the creator. Then for the people to use, they can go on there, whether a creator invites you in and you just go directly into that creator's Upspace, or you could browse the marketplace of all the different creators, because everybody's going to want something new. You might have one goal, you might have another, I might have another, and we might have multiple goals, right? One to get more in touch with your mind, through meditation, one to make your thighs thinner, whatever that you're saying, whatever it might be. So
I'm
by
actually
having
looking for a Reiki specialist right now. That's what
What is it?
A Reiki, the energy. Like energy massage.
I like that.
Like a Reiki master. I'm looking for one of those. So
maybe we'll have some of those on there.
Yeah, if you can house some, that'd be great. Thank you.
So, but it'll be a place for
personal request.
Yeah, personal request. Thank you.
Take it. Noted. So you'll be able to find, just because we'll have this marketplace of all the different creators, find anything that you want, that you need right on there from the creators.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. What else do you have, Mark? Because I'm getting into the lightning round now.
I have what I think is a good lightning round question.
Go.
Let me start with that.
Yeah,
so
let's do it.
You're familiar with, we're all familiar with Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, right?
Yep.
That phone a friend. What topic, unrelated to what you have talked about, would your friend phone you for? Something you know more about than most people.
Well, I'm definitely a generalist. So
you call him for anything. I called him. I call Shaun.
So versus I'm not a specialist. Like Eric, specialist of his craft, master of his craft, very good with the videos, with the cameras. I'm more a generalist in the sense that I can play with the videos. I can learn the videos. Mm-hmm. So I can speak the language, but I can also understand the mics. I understand how to be the podcaster. So I could do a little bit of a lot of things. So it'd probably be the general question around how do I make $1 million in a year or something?
Yeah, I think it'd be around. For me, I'd probably call you around.
Oh, okay, and then I would come up with some plan to make it versus a specific. If they're how do you make a camera, build a camera to sell it,
or Russian literature or something?
I can't tell you, but I can show you somebody who can.
Right. More business questions probably, I would imagine, right?
Yeah.
Inspirational business questions.
Yeah, probably
sure.
Around that.
For sure. And you just moved, right? Just tell us a little bit about that. What made you move to California?
So in Philly, I felt like, you know, I like playing soccer. In Philly, I'm playing soccer, but most people in Philly like playing basketball. When in Palo Alto, everybody's playing soccer. Not that basketball or soccer is good or bad. One's better than the other. It's just different. So I just wanted to be around more people playing soccer so I could learn from them, share resources with them, share tricks with them. And in my world, that's a lot of engineers, a lot of other founders building in consumer tech or just tech in general, and then a lot of venture capitalists.
Yeah, I mean, where you moved also happens to be like the hotbed for... Now, why don't you like the word entrepreneur?
I think it's overused and over-celebrated because not all entrepreneurs are good, so they shouldn't all be celebrated. A lot of entrepreneurs will just kind of build to like exploit or whatever it might be. So it's just overused. And
what would you call it yourself if you're not an entrepreneur?
A builder, a
business
curious
builder?
person. No, it's not business to me. Like business is just the vehicle in which I do it. But to me, it's really about, and I think that's what the origin of the entrepreneur wasn't about the business. It was more about there's this problem in the world and we want to fix it. I'm going to do anything in my power to fix it. Now, business tends to be that vehicle that we fix it. But there's a lot of other vehicles that you could. It's just we call that thing a business because of the economic structure that we live in today. You need the money, which is just a tool so that you can deploy that tool to get more tools or talent or whatever it might be. So I think entrepreneur has become very business focused, but the truth of it, like the true entrepreneurs, like the Steve Jobs, the Albert Einsteins, the Nikola Teslas, those type of people of the world, it wasn't about the money and the fame. It was about the problem and the solution. And that's why I don't like the word, because it's going around. That makes like, sense. What's the biggest side hustle I could do, or whatever, this or that.
Right.
It's like, okay, great, but like, what are you doing for the world? Nothing.
Right.
You're making money. I don't disrespect. I don't think that's bad necessarily, but it's not at the level of Nikola Tesla, who was trying to make energy accessible to all.
Right. Or Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah.
So who's that person now that you know of? Like maybe we don't even know who that person is, like that you've found and uncovered. There's going to be the next Elon Musk or the next Steve Jobs, or is it you?
I'll be my own path. I'll definitely be different. But to me, there's one person who's already starting to make it like pretty high up, but Ivan Zhao, he's the CEO of Notion. And Notion is like this productivity tool, but he has much grander dreams. It's a $12 billion company, so it's pretty big right now. But I saw him in SF at some convention or whatever, at some talk, and I could tell. Like you can just tell.
Yeah.
He will go on to do some
next level,
continuously great things beyond.
Any women?
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of women out there. My mom always says I say that word wrong. Women.
I mean, you're probably more like in tune with men because you are one.
Yeah,
and
no, for
like
sure.
Thinking and like trying to emulate.
Yeah,
other men, but
I relate to, and I have 5 brothers. So
right. A lot of male energy, which is fine.
To men more than women, just because we are different. If people can deny it, but
no, we are.
I relate a little bit more to men, so I think like a lot of my social feed is just more men.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some incredible women out there doing incredible things. And it's not just like in people in general, not just doing things in business. There's people who are inspiring the world through family, who are building one family. Like I look at my mom and she's a freaking superhero.
She is.
Over I don't care what CEO, boss, guy or girl. I look at my mom like that person is a way more important to humanity than you. And you have a $50 billion company. Who gives a shit? You're going to die. Nobody's going to remember you. That's building legacy right there. That's going to last and spread ripples throughout the world. And that's all the mothers out there. Yourself as well. I look at you and look at Zach and Sammy as more impressive than I would look at Mainline Studios or Koi Fly.
Right. Agreed.
And same thing with fathers as well.
Yeah.
Like I look at my dad, he's got a business. I'm like, great. Who gives a shit about the business? You're going to die and you'll be forgotten. And so will your business. And so will your business partners will forget you too. But your kids and their kids, that'll last. And it's the coolest creation of all time.
Legacy, yeah.
So I think
That's
shout out to the
awesome.
mothers.
All right, I love that.
I love it.
Okay.
Lightning round.
What's one thing that no one knows about you that you want to break here on this podcast?
I don't think people recognize like how deep this is to me. Like, I think a lot of people think this is about business. This is about maybe money, or this is about, like, they see an app that I'm building. But what I'm really doing is cultural innovation, where we're going to completely change culture for centuries to come. And I don't think a lot of people know that's my intention and that's my goal. They just see, oh, he's building a business. He's getting this experience. He's raising money, like, good for him. You know, he's building this technology, cool. And then they're going to start to see some success. Like, oh, it's a good business. Like, look at him. He's making money. This is his net worth. And all these, like, fake shit things, these material things. And they might think that's my intention. But truthfully, I don't give a shit about any of that. I don't care at all.
And I think you've done a good job of expressing that, though, here, for sure, so we can hopefully get that message out for you.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite quote?
I do.
What is it? I knew you would.
I have a few.
Okay, let's hear a couple.
You want to hear a couple?
Sure.
So the one quote is, let me think about it for a sec. And I'll paraphrase it because I might not get it perfectly right. But the second you look, this is by Steve Jobs, who's like one of my favorite people. The second you look out into the world, you look out into life and recognize that all the things that you see in life were created by people no greater than you. You can change things, you can influence it, and you can make things that other people will use. And that was by Steve Jobs. And that really, I heard that, years ago. And I share that with people all the time. But it just makes you look like, oh, I could build that camera. Oh, Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon, legend. I could do that. Elon Musk builds Tesla, SpaceX, and rockets. I could do that. Nikola Tesla was discovering electricity and energy potentially. So we hear that could reach the masses affordably or for free. I could do that. So you start to look at all these great people you look up to. Whatever your goals are, you can do that too. And that's where you start reaching. And that's where your actions start going towards. So that quote's powerful.
That's cool.
And the last quote, which is has always been one of my favorite, is, love is the one thing that we can perceive that can transcend through space and time. And that's from the movie Interstellar.
Ooh.
So if you think space, you got space and then you got time, the dimension that we live in. So there's two different dimensions. I'm out in California, but I still feel the love of my family, and they probably still feel my love. Or a loved one dies. Your mom dies, your dad dies, someone dies, and you still feel that love. It's transcending through time. As time goes by, it could be 30 years. Like my grandmother who was over, my mom, my grandfather, her husband died 10 plus years ago, and you can see the love. 10 years of time.
It's beautiful.
And he hasn't been here. So it's not like it's growing with time. He's not here. It's transcend through it. So love is one thing that we can perceive that transcends.
I love
through space and time.
I love that thing about love.
Yeah, it's a cool quote.
Yeah. I mean, do you have anything else? Because I want Shaun to get out all of the ways that people can get in touch with you, and they can sign up for Upspace and give it out so we can get it out there for you.
Follow me on Instagram. That would probably or connect with me on LinkedIn. But Instagram, starting to create more content, so that would probably be the best way to get in touch with me. Okay. Shaun_Ziegler.
One last thing I gotta ask you: ice baths. Do it or don't do it.
Do it.
I saw your thing on it, and I really almost bought one this weekend. I was with Sammy, and I'm like, God, really, the way people talk about it,
it's powerful stuff.
I don't like it though. I can't imagine jumping in cold water.
Part of that is part of the great things.
Mm-hmm.
You don't.
Have you done that?
No, but I just literally had a conversation with my son and told him I was buying one.
Yes,
really?
let's go. I love that. It's powerful.
It's a mental game. That's what it is, to actually get up and get in it. I mean, I know it now. Taking a cold shower, that's a mental game, but this is at a whole new level.
Dude, no, you're plunging yourself in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a mental game, so you're building that mental resilience and tolerance, but it's also a physiological game.
Yeah,
There's so many benefits to it that don't have the harmful symptoms of, I think my post was, cold plunges are like Adderall, cocaine, and coffee. So it doesn't have those negative effects of that, but it does have the positive ones, the dopamine release, serotonin, norepinephrine, GABA. So there's all these different benefits from it too. Plus, you're building that mental,
that discipline, that strength.
So
cool. What you're about to step into. Oof.
So I highly recommend.
Yeah, and I saw you think about being addicted to something, and I think those kind of healthy things. You know, if you're an addictive personality, like why not be addicted to that?
Yeah, everyone's addicted. I'm addicted to biting my nails, right? Yeah. Addictions are just, human beings are meant to be addicted. Like we are habit-forming creatures.
Right, and some of it's really good. Like we need those habits.
We do. It makes us, allow us to be automatic so that we can still survive and protect ourselves. But we can be automatic in the routine things. So might as well make those routine. You only have room for so much addiction. Right? Because you run out of time.
You only have room for so many addictions.
Say you have room, hypothetically, for 10 addictions.
Yeah.
Might as well fill those 10 addictions with good things that are going to make you a superhuman. Versus right now, a lot of society fills those 10 things with really negative things. And then they wonder why they're depressed or you know having issues. Well, replace the addictions.
I think people are going to get addicted to you, Shaun, and Upspace. And I'm excited about it. And thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Talking to us in our little Gurus and Game Changers podcast. And
a true guru, a true game changer.
I know. And he's just starting.
I know.
That's the crazy part.
I want to see what happens 10 years from now. We'll have to have you back on. 10 years from now.
We'll come on in 10 years.
Right?
That'll be fun.
Let's plan that.
Thank you, Shaun.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.